uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, and true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Call of the roll. Before we do the call of the roll, this honorable house now resumes its sitting. Call of the roll, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Holness, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Montague, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Mallow-Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Terry Long, Ms. Smith, Mr. Main, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Davis, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown-Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Ms. Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Mr. Miller, Ms. Morrison, Ms. Nita, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Sibbles, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Witter, Mr. Wright, Dr. Tufton,
Members, just before we move into the agenda, I'm sure you will indulge me as the speaker if I welcome back on behalf of us all Member Jackson, who has been out for a while. He looks very well rested and very young and fit and ready, and it's good to have you back.
With your permission, Madam Speaker, let me just acknowledge your expressions just now and to also express my appreciation to the best wishes conveyed to me from various members of the House on both sides who have had interaction with during the period. For the record, I had the necessity to have a medical procedure, which was quite successful, and the rehabilitation was so successful, allow me to now return to my duties here. So thanks again to all the members.
Statements by ministers. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: Ministry Paper number 28 of 2021, an annual report of the Planning Institute of Jamaica for the financial year ending December 31, 2019. The University of the West Indies Mona Campus audited financial statement for the year 2019, 2020, 2021, 2023 biennium budget, and the 2021-2023 Memorandum of Estimates of Needs, and annual report and financial statements of the Housing Agency of Jamaica Limited for the year 2018-2019.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the expiration of 21 days, I will ask the Minister of Health and Wellness the following questions.
Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, at this time we will resume the sectoral debate, and I call upon the designated contributors, Honorable Audley Shaw, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and he will be followed by Mr. Michael Phillips, MP Manchester Northwestern.
Member, the Honorable Minister Audley Shaw, and you have permission to speak from a seat other than your own. So go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It is an honor and privilege to stand before this honorable House this afternoon to report to the country, this country that I love so much, on the performance of my ministry over the past year, and to outline our programs for the new financial year, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I don't take this task for granted, nor do I take it lightly. I take it humbly as I continue to serve the people of Jamaica. I'd like to thank and express gratitude for the record of this House. First of all, my gratitude to my wife and family. Who are not here with me now because she's taking care of a 11-year-old daughter who just went back to school to prepare for PEP exams in 2 weeks. So she's at school and then she has extra lessons this afternoon. I also want to thank the people of my constituency, Northeast Manchester. Madam Speaker, time has moved so fast that I can now report to you that I'm now serving 28 years as Member of Parliament. And I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, Madam Speaker, but just for the facts, I am now the longest serving Member of Parliament for the parish of Manchester. I want to give gratitude to my cabinet and parliamentary colleagues, led by the Most Honourable Prime Minister, and the leadership and staff of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce and its departments, our boards of directors, and the leadership and staff of our agencies. I want to acknowledge the support and work of my colleague Minister of State, the Honourable Dr. Norman Dunn, who joined the team in October of last year and has taken on the task, Madam Speaker, with great fervour. And in fact, I'm thinking of done, Madam Speaker, but him just a come. All right, okay, I'll try again. I want to acknowledge our new Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Sansia Bennett-Templer, who took up the reins in March of this year. Special acknowledgements to my colleague Minister, the Honourable Floyd Green, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, and the leadership and staff of his ministry, with whom we shared portfolio responsibilities as the former Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries. I would like to especially thank our outgoing Permanent Secretary, Dermot Spence, who led the Super Ministry MICAF diligently before the separation and continued in this role for this ministry up to February of this year. I wish to acknowledge the resilience of our Jamaican people, particularly our investors, our entrepreneurs in the micro, small and medium-sized businesses, as well as our large business enterprises. The COVID-19 pandemic, Madam Speaker, has brought us adversity and crisis. However, we have undertaken various initiatives to mitigate the fallout from the pandemic, and we are on the way to recovery. But the truth be told, Madam Speaker, is that we cannot blame all our problems on the pandemic. There are issues that precede the pandemic which need to be addressed. These include our competitiveness and our levels of productivity, which must be overhauled, Madam Speaker, in a meaningful way. My presentation today will be done in two parts. Firstly, I will focus on the Ministry's response to overcoming the challenges of this pandemic, after which I will move into the policies, plans, and activities that are being undertaken to recover stronger and faster. Our response to the COVID-19 challenge, Madam Speaker, was immediate, nimble, and swift. As a practical way forward, we have laid the groundwork for recovery through targeted and strategic mobilization of our manufacturing, export, and investment portfolios. In the recovery process, the Ministry called on JAMPRO to intensify efforts to drive investment and trade in critical areas. The agency refocused its promotional efforts in the manufacturing, outsourcing, and agribusiness sectors. These areas were identified as having the best opportunities for resilience and growth within the constraints and demands occasioned by the pandemic. Simultaneously, the organization ramped up its facilitation, services, and policy advocacy role to ensure that existing, new, and potential investors in all sectors were supported by robust and aggressive actions and policies to drive business decisions and allow for fast implementation of investment projects and entry into new markets. Madam Speaker, despite the challenges of the fiscal year just ended, JAMPRO facilitated 29 major investment projects. 20 were new projects, while 9 were expansion activities. This is partly due to the corporation's immediate pivot to leveraging the digital space through employing virtual engagements as a means to expand the promotional reach of investment and trade opportunities to key target groups locally and internationally. As we are all aware, the tourism industry has been severely impacted regionally and locally. My ministry, through JAMPRO, continues to work closely with our colleagues at the Ministry of Tourism to attract and facilitate key tourism investments. We have been successful in our recovery efforts so far. Of the 29 projects facilitated by JAMPRO, the largest was the Ocean Coral Springs Hotel, valued at US $250 million, while the largest expansion project was the Montego Bay Airport runway and terminal expansion, valued at $115 million US. These are both projects which will contribute positively to Jamaica's tourism products. We are pleased that some 4,800 rooms are slated for development over the next 3 years. This demonstrates that despite the pandemic, investor confidence in this sector, tourism sector, remains strong, and the ministry, through JAMPRO, will continue to facilitate further investment in the sector. JAMPRO, despite the challenges, has recorded the injection of almost US $215 million in local direct investment and foreign direct investment into the local economy, creating 6,500 new jobs, while also facilitating over US $755 million in traditional and non-traditional export sales for its clients. Recognizing that economic recovery for Jamaica is substantially tied to the growth of MSMEs, Madam Speaker, the Ministry actively responded to drive export and trade for the agricultural and manufacturing MSMEs by utilizing virtual business-to-business meeting platforms and facilitating virtual engagement with global buyers. We pivoted well. The flagship enterprise development for economic growth program, Export Max, provides focused capacity building and market penetration support to 50 exporting and export-ready firms. The resilience of MSMEs under the Export Max program is evidenced by 30% of the companies recording significant increases in their 2020 export sales over 2019. These companies have expanded into new markets in Europe, North America, the Caribbean, and Latin America. Commendably, Madam Speaker, a small company has grown to a medium enterprise with projected earnings of more than $240 million for 2021. As a responsible government, we responded immediately to the financing needs of the MSMEs. Through the Exim Bank, 444 loans, valued at 4.5 billion Jamaican dollars, were disbursed to some 100 MSMEs. Furthermore, over 60 of Exim's clients were provided with the opportunity to save their businesses through loan restructurings and payment holidays to the tune of almost $1 billion. The Ministry also intensified our efforts to transition more of our MSMEs from informality to formality. It is estimated that approximately 43% of the Jamaican economy operates informally. We welcome the support from the International Labour Organization, which partnered with us for a formalizing project valued at $70,000 to benefit 100 participants in the first instance. And Madam Speaker, a little later in my presentation, I'm going to come back to the issue of formality versus informality, because I want our small businesses to know that one of the consequences of becoming a formal business is that you will have access to cheaper money to make your business more competitive. Now, coming back to that. In our quest to recover faster and stronger through harnessing opportunities for advancement in the trade sector, several significant initiatives were mobilized to realign our strategic priorities to achieve growth. These include widening our export basket to include not just our traditional export products, but also non-traditional products such as our craft and nutraceuticals, placing targeted focus on the Northern Caribbean markets in a bid to diversify markets, continuing coordination of trade facilitation measures to improve the business climate for local and international traders. Madam Speaker, manufacturing remains one of the most resilient sectors of our economy. The disruption in the traditional global supply chain presented local businesses with the opportunity to enter new export markets in North America and the Caribbean. Locally, new linkages were established between manufacturers and companies in the service sectors such as tourism and business process outsourcing. Our homegrown manufacturers seized this opportunity to enter new export markets in North America and the Caribbean, supplying buyers that experience disruptions in their traditional supply chains. Manufacturers increased production and the sale of products such as rubbing alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, pharmaceuticals, masks, paper towels, and household and industrial cleaning chemicals. Cottage industries have developed and are being encouraged to formalize in order to benefit from more targeted interventions or stimulus packages. Jerry and Neville, Madam Speaker, was one of the early responders which quickly adapted their manufacturing process to produce bulk hand sanitizer. 100,000 liters of high-strength alcohol was used to produce sanitizing and cleaning agents for hospitals and homes. In my presentation in the sectoral debate last year, I noted then, Madam Speaker, that over the last 5 years, the manufacturing sector has been experiencing the most robust growth of any period during the last 25 years, recording an average quarterly growth of 2.2%. The COVID-19 pandemic had a mixed effect on the sector. The Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association reported a 14.5% decrease in demand for goods among 44% of its membership. Alternatively, however, 33% of its members reported an increase in sales of over 11%. In terms of sales revenues, in the fourth quarter of 2020, some 62% of manufacturers saw a 3.8% decline when compared with the first quarter results. But again, 20% of JME members, EA members, reported an increase in sales revenue in the fourth quarter, moving up from 13% in the third quarter, while 17% reported stable sales. And that is commendable, Madam Speaker. To support the sector, the ministry continues to play its part in expanding fiscal incentives to qualified manufacturers. In this regard, we have bolstered the productive input relief for manufacturers and continued with adjustments to the treatment of site visits for re-verification of manufacturing status. Additionally, at the onset of the pandemic, an extension of the PIR for 6 months was granted for expired manufacturing status. We are recovering, Madam Speaker, faster and stronger. The ministry and its counterparts across the government and within the manufacturing sector remain steadfast in our efforts to close all the gaps and seize all the opportunities for growth of this important sector and critically for the expansion of exports. Today I'm happy to report 2 significant wins which are expected to produce real benefits for the economy and may redefine our relationship with CARICOM going forward. After a long, hard-fought battle over some 2 years with CARICOM, clinker and condensed milk have been afforded an additional layer of protection within the CARICOM community. This means, Madam Speaker, that an increased advantage to those companies supplying these products to the region. Consequently, imports of like products from outside the region cannot be granted any unilateral reduction in common external tariffs without the agreement of all CARICOM member states. This means that in the case of separate, for example, producers of condensed milk, their over $77 million investment has not been in vain. The Caribbean Cement Company invested approximately $12.5 billion Jamaican dollars between 2016 and 2020 to expand the capacity to increase production. As a result, the company has boosted its production capacity to 1.32 million metric tons of cement. That is the highest amount of cement they have ever produced in Jamaica. They are expected to invest a further $1.75 billion between 2021 and 2023 to improve its efficiencies and continue to increase its capacity. This expansion supports the growth in the construction sector, which is one of the few sectors that shows consistent growth during this difficult period. This sector presents an opportunity for further investments in areas such as housing, to include the diaspora and the projected growth in the tourism sector. Madam Speaker, I mention the diaspora because, the diaspora, depending no matter where they are, they're getting a little nervous. And they're looking at coming back home to Jamaica. And we have to prepare for them, provide housing for them, provide protected housing schemes for them, let them feel welcome and comfortable. Instead of retiring to Florida, Jamaicans must retire to Jamaica. The projected growth in the tourism sector as well. We are bullish on this, and we believe that the diaspora has the potential to contribute to Jamaica and are prepared to make the necessary investment in retirement villages, among other areas. Other small manufacturers would have also seen successes despite the challenges presented. In April of last year, Quality Incorporations 7 Limited, a Jamaican manufacturer, exported tissue, toilet paper, to the United States. It was the first shipment of that kind to the U.S. from Jamaica, opening up a new avenue for export product diversification. In pursuit of larger markets, another paper products producer, San Myrna Paper Products Limited, followed in their footsteps in October of last year and now plan to set up a manufacturing plant in Nigeria, Madam Speaker, a Jamaican company. The manufacturing sector is projected to get an even more significant boost from the implementation of the National 5-Year Manufacturing Growth Strategy, which was tabled in Parliament last year, July. The goal of this strategy is to achieve Jamaica $81 billion per annum in manufacturing output by 2025. And Madam Speaker, I want to say that's a modest target. We're going to beat it. We're going to make sure that we get closer to $100 billion as our target. This translates to an approximate annual average growth rate of 3% over the 5-year period. A manufacturing coordinator will be engaged shortly to drive its implementation. And we will be working closely with the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, the private sector organization of Jamaica, and all of the other relevant entities to make sure that we assist to move the roadblocks wherever they are so that we can have them making it easier to do business in Jamaica. We recognize that growth and expansion constitute the new normal for this sector. Going forward, the plan of action as recommended by industry stakeholders includes greater emphasis on digitization of the sector, improved systems for productivity, innovation, logistics, supply chains. Madam Speaker, many of the members in this House are too young to remember or to know, unless they read it in our history books, that in the 1960s, Jamaica had one of the highest levels of productivity in the world. In the 1960s, our economy was growing then by an annual average of 6%. In 1971, in one single year, Jamaica's economy grew by 11.5% in 1 year. And in 1972, I'm not going to go there, we had to change the government. I'm not going to go there now, right? But we went into reverse. And we had a concept never known before to Jamaica called negative growth. And after that we came back in, that's when I joined government. And we formed the Jamaica National Investment Promotion Limited. And I worked with JNIP. I was based in Jamaica first, then in New York. And yes, guess what? By 1987, we brought the economy back to 7% annual growth. And despite Hurricane Gilbert in 1988, the economy still grew that year by 3%. We have to use history to motivate us to get back onto the platform of aggressive economic growth. As part of the continuing thrust to expand and diversify the manufacturing sector, and to respond to the challenges created and improve efficiency, the Ministry has spearheaded the establishment of a manufacturing and export growth team to drive the implementation of strategies geared at increasing and diversifying export products and markets. This initiative is a public-private partnership chaired by my Minister of State in my ministry, Dr. Norman Dunn, and co-chaired by Mr. Gary Butch Hendrickson, representing the private sector. Through this team, Madam Speaker, the lobby for the removal of the Customs Administration fee was also accelerated and now derives real benefits for our small businesses. The MSME sector is now able to maximize opportunities for exports and enhance their ability to grow and develop without this onerous tax burden on exports up to a value of US $500. Madam Speaker, while the original request of the team was for the complete removal of the CAF, we understand the delicate balance between revenue generation and export promotion. We want to thank the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the Public Service for the support, especially at this critical time, and we will seek further adjustments as the economy stabilizes and grows. At the start of the pandemic, the business process outsourcing industry experienced challenges of layoffs and loss of contracts, moving from an industry peak of 43,000 employed in December 2019 to just over 35,000 in June of last year. The greatest challenge faced was the sector's need for flexibility in order to maintain jobs within the context of COVID-19 protocols. This was quickly facilitated by the government, approving the sector as an essential service and allowing temporary work from home arrangements. This has proven to be a good policy in stabilizing employment for the sector. Subsequent approvals under the Customs Act allow the flexibility for employees to continue to work from home. This significant change represents a major triumph for the industry, enabling the sector to rebound, resulting in rehires and expansions of existing clients, as well as increase in the progression towards higher value-added outsourcing services. In fact, Madam Speaker, the industry has portrayed some significant signs of recovery and is on its way to returning to its pre-COVID peak, with every indication that it will pick up on its previous trajectory of 16 to 18% growth per year and create numerous jobs for Jamaicans in the near and future and beyond. Jamaica's advantage as a prime BPO location is secure, and the performance of local talent continues to encourage business expansions from current players and attract new interest. Despite the challenges, there is the potential to add approximately 3,000 more jobs in this sector in the near future. The Ministry also moved swiftly to amend the requisite regulations to provide for the holding of hybrid and completely electronic meetings, specifically for those entities falling under the classification of friendly industrial and provident societies. Additionally, the trade sales of goods during period of declaration of disaster area order 2020 was enacted to prevent price gouging and to ensure the protection of consumers during periods of emergency or disasters in Jamaica. So, Madam Speaker, moving ahead, we recognize that a strong legislative and policy framework is a critical pillar of any sustainable strategy toward moving this country forward. So in this vein, the following policies and legislation are among our priorities for the fiscal year. National investment policy. The House will recall that in July last year, the National Investment Policy was tabled as a green paper. The draft white paper is now being finalized, and it will be tabled in the House shortly. I have spoken earlier about the resilience of the BPO sector to ensure continued growth. This ministry is committed to the implementation of the national 5-year global digital services strategy that will see to the expansion of this industry. The strategy, which is to be tabled by me shortly to Cabinet, will facilitate promotion of the sector, enable training of students in new digital skills of a higher value skill set, and pave the way for introduction of new businesses in the Jamaican landscape along the outsourcing value chain. The strategy aims to increase the sector's employment towards achieving 70,000 jobs by 2025, up from the current 40,000 jobs, Madam Speaker. The Ministry and the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries continue to work closely in implementing the National 5-Year Agribusiness Strategy. The Food Security and Agribusiness Council, chaired by me and Minister Green, along with the PSOJ's chair of the Agriculture Committee, Matthew Lynn, was established to drive the implementation of the strategy. The strategy comprises programs and activities designed to address the challenges inhibiting the expansion of the agribusiness industry and infusing the leveraging of advancements in agriculture. Madam Speaker, every day we get new incentives. Just 2 or 3 months ago, the National Geographic magazine in the United States declared, Madam Speaker, Jamaica's ackee and saltfish as one of the 10 best dishes in the world. So now, we're not going to export the ackee in the can alone. That will continue. We have to plant more ackee. We have to have more ackee orchards. And guess what? We'll have to start exporting the ackee. Canned ackee and saltfish must be exported to the world, Madam Speaker. The national sourcing policy is also being advanced to rebalance the shortfalls in the impact of foreign direct investment on economic growth, and is intended to increase linkages between micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises and multinational corporations. I will be advancing this policy in Cabinet shortly. A bill is being drafted to amend the Companies Act to allow a company in Jamaica to hold general meetings, whether annual, general or extraordinary general meetings, as hybrid meetings, that is in person or virtually, or as completely electronic meetings. This amendment is expected to be tabled by me in this Honourable House by the end of this month, Madam Speaker. Further amendments are to come shortly to improve efficiency in relation to the incorporation of companies and deter against companies being used for money laundering and other illicit activities. Madam Speaker, the Ministry and its partners will also continue to create an enabling environment for emerging industries such as cannabis and bamboo, which will lead to increased GDP contribution and employment. Recovering faster and stronger is not just a catchphrase, Madam Speaker. It must include the advancement of these two industries as we continue to diversify the manufacturing sector. You know, Madam Speaker, it is said that in every crisis there's an opportunity. It is said that in every crisis there's a seed of greater benefit. Find the seed, sow the seed, nurture it, and watch us jump out of the crisis. So one of the areas that we have to focus on is cannabis. The government, through the Cannabis Licensing Authority, has laid the foundation for medical cannabis and related industries. This includes interim policies governing hemp production and the export of cannabis, which have been developed in advance of the requisite bills being enacted. As at March 31st, the CLA had granted 78 licenses for cultivation, processing, transport, research and development, and retail, of which 13 were issued in 2020-21 financial year. Additionally, 8 no objections to cultivate hemp have been issued. At most important development, Madam Speaker, is the progress being made in the United States with the Safe Banking Act, which was approved in the U.S. House of Representatives recently and is yet to be considered in the Senate. We await this development with great optimism, as passage of the Act will allow for financial institutions to do business with legitimate medicinal cannabis companies. The participation of the financial sector is critical to the success of the medicinal cannabis industry for both large and small investors. It finally appears that we are that much closer to solving the correspondent banking issues which have long plagued this industry and have caused its anemic growth. Madam Speaker, December 2 of last year represented significant win for cannabis with the removal of cannabis and cannabis-related substances from the United Nations Schedule 4 of the Single Convention on Narcotics Drugs, 1961. This has provided renewed energy to focus on the economic potential for the production of cannabis derivatives such as oils, nutraceuticals, edibles and other ingestibles, as well as exports. The Ministry of Health and Wellness remains a strategic partner in facilitating these value-added components of the industry, and my ministry looks forward to collaborating with them to develop this important growth sector. These recent developments are a strong signal that Jamaica must position itself to grow the local industry and maximize the economic, social, and medicinal opportunities available. It is in this regard that I recently appointed a new board of directors with the permission of Cabinet, which has been charged with balancing the regulation with the growth and development agenda for the industry. I want to express my appreciation to the former board which guided the continued work of the organization. As we now move forward, the strategic focus of this industry will be one that promotes inclusivity, efficiency, and productivity. In 3 short years, the global cannabis industry is forecast to double in value to a worth of approximately $42 billion United States dollars. By embracing the full opportunities of the industry, we will grow the marketplace, generate increased revenue, and enable job creation. Many of our local licensees have invested in technology that allows them to produce cannabis byproducts in a safe and compliant manner. The ministry recognizes that in order for the industry to truly grow, we must urgently establish a framework in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and Wellness that sets out clear guidelines of how this will be accomplished. Let us now provide the framework to develop these products to the required standard. We are encouraged by recent discussions between the CLA and the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica, with the end goal of getting locally produced cannabis-based medicines in local pharmacies. It is ironic, Madam Speaker, that we are importing things like hemp coming from abroad, sell them in our pharmacies, and we don't have hemp from Jamaica being sold in our pharmacies. That can't continue. A nutraceutical sector can also benefit tremendously from the export-import bill, which is at the very final stages before going to Cabinet for approval. Jamaica remains one of the few countries in the world known for its cannabis. This has significant brand value, but we must act with urgency. In the interim, the aforementioned export policy has made it possible for several of our local licensees have now started to export to Germany, Australia, the United States, among other countries, Madam Speaker. Jamaica has some of the most experienced and knowledgeable local cannabis farmers that have been growing high-grade ganja for decades. As the industry develops, there will be increased demand for cannabis, and our subsistence farmers will help to fill this demand. This is the basis for the Cultivator's special permit, which will reduce the barriers to entry for our subsistence farmers by having lower fees and fewer infrastructural requirements. The Cultivator's permit will employ a concept where the farmers will operate their satellite farms and sell their crops at a set price to mother farms run by licensees. This farming concept will be utilized to implement a mother farm pilot project to integrate and provide a pathway for small cultivators to matriculate to a cultivator's permit. The project will test the framework for the cultivator's transitional special permit.
Members' time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, I ask for the Minister to be given additional time to complete his presentation.
The question before the House is that the Minister be given additional time to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Minister, you may continue.
Madam Speaker, I want to repeat the need to implement a mother farm pilot project to integrate and provide a pathway for small cultivators to matriculate to a cultivator's permit. The project will test the framework for the cultivator's transitional special permit and inform the development of guidelines and protocols to operationalize the permit. In order to achieve the goal of developing and growing this industry, neither the CLA nor my ministry can do it on our own. We have the vision, but to realize the benefits of our country and our citizens, we need strategic collaboration. We call on the Ministry of Health to become an active partner to ensure that we expeditiously agree to policies and strategies that allow for immediate expansion and speedy implementation for this industry. In order to compete on the global platform, we cannot allow Jamaica to be left behind in this industry, which has been recognized for its important medicinal properties by the United Nations, which has resulted, I repeat, in its removal from Schedule 4 of the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, 1961. The medical and pharmaceutical fraternity, the tourism industry, the Ministry of Health, academia, the security forces, customs, border control, and the public all are needed because the cannabis industry touches all these stakeholders and will positively impact them as the industry flourishes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, during the financial year 2021, the Ministry held numerous engagements with the bamboo sector. Jamaica has vast acreages of bamboo, estimated at 160,000 acres, which is currently growing wild. While industrial development in Asia has resulted in domestic bamboo sectors in countries such as India and China growing in value to US $4 billion, and in China $32 billion US dollars, respectively. Bamboo in Jamaica remains, apart from some yamstick, it remains underutilized. There is an opportunity for Jamaica to tap into this lucrative industry through the growing of bamboo commercially. It also presents an area of opportunity for farmers in rural areas of Jamaica and for the expansion of light manufacturing. The Bureau of Standards, in collaboration with the National Housing Trust and the Bamboo Industry Association of Jamaica, are implementing the potential use of bamboo in affordable housing project. You hear that, Madam Speaker? The potential use of bamboo in affordable housing development project. The project, which is funded by the National Housing Trust in the amount of $54 billion, involves conducting research in the use of bamboo in all aspects of the construction of houses, such as tiles and drywalls, the construction of model bamboo houses. The initial research is to determine the appropriate bamboo techniques to be applied to the Jamaican bamboo, which, as you know, we have to have a special name already, Bambusa vulgaris. That is the Jamaican name of our version of bamboo. Okay, but I won't repeat it again. I'll have you repeat it. And dry the bamboo as well as make building material such as bamboo mat boards, load-bearing beams, and wall partitions. The research component of the project will be completed by December of this year, to be followed by the construction of model houses. This, we believe, offers tremendous opportunity for import replacement for items such as plyboards and other building materials. Madam Speaker, the country now has the opportunity to build a bamboo pulp and paper mill, the first of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean. The Ministry has been engaged with the investor in advancing this project to establish the mill site in Frome, Westmoreland, valued at approximately United States almost $300 million, $296 million. The company requires a total of 20,000 acres of arable land to establish bamboo orchards to meet the 1 million tons of bamboo fiber required per year. Madam Speaker, this opens up opportunities for farmers and owners with land, many of which were in sugar and is not in there anymore, and the land is lying idle. Land that is suitable for bamboo cultivation, contract cultivation, is also under consideration within the surrounding communities and even communities afar. The project estimates a total of 500 direct jobs and approximately 5,000 indirect jobs being added over the next 10 years. The Bamboo Industry Association of Jamaica has secured a commitment from Resource Fiber Limited, a US-based company, to purchase bamboo mat boards from Jamaica if the samples made from the local species meet the company's specifications. In light of this, a bamboo mat board sample development project was proposed. Funding in the sum of $2.7 million has been provided through the National Housing Trust as a part of the current potential use of bamboo in affordable housing project. The sample mat board project, started in March of this year, will run for 3 months. We want to take advantage of the export opportunity which is presented and the potential to further diversify the bamboo industry to provide channels for greater investment in the industry, Madam Speaker. In addition to all of this, we have received grant funding in the sum of US $1.9 million from the Chinese government for the development of a bamboo industrial demonstration facility. This facility will focus on capacity building and demonstration workshops for farmers and investors, knowledge and skills, transfer to local participants, and community development. The plant will offer space for training and the manufacture of furniture for schools, bamboo charcoal, toothpicks, barbecue sticks, straws, disposable utensils, and other craft items. The government of Jamaica will contribute US $500,000 to this important project. Notably, Madam Speaker, in line with the government's commitment to the bamboo industry, on April 12 of this year, my colleague Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries confirmed that discussions have commenced to designate bamboo as an agricultural crop. Thank you very much, Minister. So it won't just grow wild on the riverbank anymore, on the hillside, but we're going to put in bamboo orchards. This is welcome news. It will allow for the much-needed extension services of RADA to be applied to the cultivation of bamboo, and it also holds promise for structured orchard cultivation of the crop to ensure sustainability, standardization, and to secure a steady supply of raw material for manufacturing. This approach would have a significant impact on the value-added products which Jamaica will be able to produce. Madam Speaker, I turn now to a sector that is near and dear to my heart, the small and medium-sized sector. We call it the MSME sector. As you know, Madam Speaker, or you might not know, I'm a proud son of Christiana in Manchester. And I have the distinct pleasure to have been a part of this vibrant MSME sector, assisting as I did my mother in her little bread shop in Christiana, selling bulla cake, ice mint, patties that my mother had in Christiana, helping my father at the same time to milk the cows and carry the milk up to the road for the milk truck to take it. God bless their souls. It is worth reiterating that the MSME sector is indispensable to achieving broad-based and inclusive growth. We cannot create wealth without an aggressive growth of the MSME sector. They represent 90% of the private sector and are involved in all productive areas of the economy. Regrettably, Madam Speaker, this sector, with all its potential, has traditionally been affected by access to finance. It is to this end that we have earmarked $600 million to be transferred to the Exim Bank to provide affordable financing for MSMEs. Just over $200 million will be immediately transferred as a result of the closure of MIDA, and a further $400 million will be made available later this year. Additionally, during the financial year, the Exim Bank plans to lend approximately $5.5 billion to the productive sector. On behalf of the 424,000 members of the MSME sector, I wish to acknowledge with thanks the continued support of the Most Honourable Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, with a further $5 billion allocation to the business sector under the $60 billion Social and Economic Recovery Vaccine Program. This will be administered by the Development Bank of Jamaica. Thank you, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. The Jamaica Business Development Corporation also solidified its role as a strong business support organization during the past financial year. The organization reports that among other COVID-19 induced adverse impacts, some 34% of its clients experienced a reduction in sales and 22% had to close temporarily. JBDC has responded with a number of strategic actions to support the small business sector, chief among these being the accelerated use of digital and online options to facilitate both e-commerce and business development services. I must pause here to say that in the $5 billion allocation from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, $1 billion was dedicated to what we call Go Digital. And it is recognized that digital transformation is critical to our business landscape and in particular to our MSMEs. One of these initiatives is the newly minted Sectoral Bank JBDC partnership for the establishment of the Sectoral Business Resource Center to assist local MSMEs. MSMEs utilizing the Sectoral Business Resource Center will benefit from an all-encompassing suite of business support services. The bank's clients will also have access to all of JBDC's services and partner programs. This is in addition to the 13 business support centers operated by the JBDC across the island in partnership with various stakeholders, including educational institutions. Madam Speaker, as it relates to the 20% set-aside regime for MSMEs under the Public Procurement Act, 5 procurement opportunities were advertised for MSMEs only in December of last year, thus launching the pilot program. For this fiscal year, 74 procurement opportunities valued at $292 million for contracts under $15 million have been identified for implementation under the pilot project. And I want to say here and ask the Speaker to forgive me and the Prime Minister to forgive me from departing from my text briefly. Additional initiatives needed to bring more companies into the formal economy. Very important, Madam Speaker, 43% of our businesses are not in the formal economy, and that is why some of them have so much problem getting money to borrow, because they are not in the formal economy. So when I was Minister of Finance in 2009, we established the Junior Stock Exchange. That has been, without question, a tremendous success. All when my friend over there tried to close it down. and I came back in, and it wasn't his fault. Somebody else was asking to close it down. I came in, I made sure it wasn't closed down, and since then, the Junior Stock Exchange has helped the stock exchange to grow, to become one of the fastest growing stock exchanges in the world. So now, what I'm saying now, and this is where I might get myself in trouble, but it is my responsibility to put it on the table. Now, in order to get more small businesses having access to affordable financing while becoming formal at the same time, I have said it to the PM in a note already. It is time for Jamaica to consider the establishment of a micro stock exchange, which will be along the same lines of the Junior Stock Exchange, and it becomes a methodology to help us to move companies into the formal economy. Madam Speaker, turning to the creative industry, Jamaican creativity on the screen has been gaining greater renown over the years. Films like Sprinter have done well, and it reiterates the point that Jamaica continues to have many stories to tell the world. To support this, my ministry is determined to put in place a screen development initiative that offers the opportunity to content developers to make their projects become a reality through pre-production, production, and marketing support. Over the years, the Jamaica Film Commission, in partnership with the Jamaica Film and Television Association, has been providing support to the Propeller Initiative, which has seen the production and marketing of several short films. And we believe that we can do more. JAMPRO is in the final stages of developing a concept for the review of the finance ministry and the approval of cabinet, under which we are hoping to roll out greater support to the creative community within this current year. It is fairly easy, Madam Speaker, to start and register a business in Jamaica. During 2021, Jamaica maintained its high ranking associated with starting a business indicator on the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business survey, where Jamaica ranked 6th among 190 economies for starting a business, number 6. That was in 2020, thus maintaining its 2019 rank. Jamaica is ranked number 1 of all the countries in Latin America and the Caribbean in relation to the number of procedures required to register a company, which was better than the countries of the European Union and the OECD. Jamaica's 2020 Ease of Doing Business Frontier score for starting a business was 97.4, with the maximum score being 100. In spite of COVID-19, during the 2020 calendar year, the number of companies registered was 2.96% above the number registered in the previous year, while the number of business names registered was 13% above the previous year's accomplishment. Madam Speaker, along with the security interest in personal property regime, we need to strengthen our intellectual property framework. The lack of knowledge and underutilization of the IP opportunities presented to Jamaica as a real tangible asset has been missed on many occasions. IP is a springboard for income generation, employment, wealth creation, especially with the creative industries and the small business sector. It is with this in mind, Madam Speaker, that the Ministry is working with JIPO to strengthen the IP infrastructure. Madam Speaker, this brings me to a critical piece of legislation, the Madrid Protocol, which successive administrations have tried to advance without success. I am therefore happy to report that this long-awaited and anticipated amendment of the Trademarks Act to support Jamaica's accession to the Madrid Protocol. It was tabled in the House on April 13 by me, Madam Speaker. Tomorrow, I am pleased to be opening the debate on this legislation, which will allow for interested parties to protect their trademark in multiple jurisdictions by filing a single registration in participating countries. This is a major initiative. The JMEA, PSOJ, been crying out for it, particularly for the manufacturing sector and MSMEs that are already faced with limited capacity and finances. So, Madam Speaker, as I leave that point, let's say you had a product that you want to target 20 countries in the world. Under the old system, you have to register in all 20 of them, your trademark. Under the Madrid Protocol, you only register one place, Madrid Protocol, and you're automatically registered in all of the countries. The Trade and Investment Facilitation Program, Madam Speaker, is vast. However, there are some flagship programs and initiatives that have been identified as key drivers increasing the country's competitiveness. As we recover stronger and faster, these include Jamaica Electronic Single Window for Trade, J-SWIFT, the one-stop facility designed to provide fully automated services to enable a single portal for access to the services of all cross-border regulatory agencies. Some 20 state agencies that facilitate imports and exports are earmarked for digitization under the J-SWIFT initiative. The Trade Board Limited was the first border regulatory agency to pilot the full-scale implementation of J-SWIFT with the implementation of export facilitation services on Monday, June 22, 2020, followed by the incorporation of import facilitation services on Monday, July 20 of last year. The Trade Board's launch on J-SWIFT has augured well for efficiency, and the agency is now able to turn around approximately 50% of permit applications within a 24-hour time frame. This is an improvement. This is an improvement on the standard service guarantee of 2 to 3 working days. Since J-SWIFT implementation, over 24,000 permits have been submitted and processed, including the import aspect of the plant quarantine and produce inspection branch of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. Several other agencies are targeted for completion before year-end, and we have also tasked the Jamaica Customs Agency, which houses and manages the J-SWIFT, to fast-track the onboarding of other border regulatory agencies that have components that are ready for digitization. Madam Speaker, the National Business Portal, an initiative being handled by JAMPRO, is an online platform that will house the business to government online interface for all government entities involved in the investment or business facilitation process. And by the end of the fiscal year, the following processes will be fully automated: registration of pharmaceutical products, accessing the productive input relief for health, entertainment, creative industries, manufacturing, and agriculture, applying for cannabis licenses, applying for the divestment of crown lands, border agency coordination. For several years, traders have complained about the multiplicity of inspections involved in the trade of a single consignment. Today, I can advise this House that we have put in place procedures to simplify inspection through a coordinated border management policy. This will mean that for the majority of products, traders will only interact with one border regulatory agency, Madam Speaker. And the governance framework to drive these critical reforms is paramount. So legislative and policy framework is being advanced quickly to effect the reforms and reduce bureaucracy. Madam Speaker, investment fuels expansion and growth. And I wish to again salute the work of the members of the private sector, many of whom have been putting their money and other assets where it matters. I have already highlighted new and upcoming investment opportunities for Jamaica. In a bid to continue to foster these investments, JAMPA will be hosting its flagship event, the Jamaica Investment Forum, which, in keeping with COVID-19 constraints and the new shift to digitization, for the first time, this will be held virtually. But, Madam Speaker, it will be held virtually in October. But guess what? In every crisis, there's an opportunity. Because normally, when JAMPA has had their investment conferences, 300 to 400 people come. We expect, using the virtual platform, 1,500 participants in it this year. So we are developing, along with the Ministry of National Security, a framework for the introduction of an economic residency program to grant residency to foster investment. The proposal has been approved by Cabinet for further consultation and determination of the conditions for granting permanent residency, not citizenship, before the CROW program can be amended into law. And, Madam Speaker, as I'm rounding towards wrapping up this presentation, I have to make a short reference to our consumer protection and empowerment. We have been overcoming the challenges, recovering stronger. We have placed increased focus on promoting consumer rights and consumer protection. And to that end, we have achieved, through the Consumer Affairs Commission, so far they handled 1,851 complaints last year, resolved 80% of these, secured $22 million in funding for compensation, and they will now expand its consumer protection role after being named in the Microcredit Act 2021. As at February 28, the Commission has disbursed $24 million, representing payment of 336 claims to consumers affected by bad gas. So, Madam Speaker, as the country repositions itself to rebound from the economic downturn, the relevance of accredited testing and inspection services will strengthen our ability. We have one of them, the health and safety of the consumer public is a focus of the National Compliance and Regulatory Authority, NCRA. And they are increasing their inspections in the marketplace to ensure that quality products get to our citizens. I am proud to inform that the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, JANAC, maintains its signatory status as a member of the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation Mutual Recognition Arrangement, which means that certification and inspection certificates from a JANAC entity are accepted worldwide. The application of the international standards for accreditation, Madam Speaker, the JANAC pre-accreditation approval program for COVID-19 testing was also launched in January of this year. And to date, 22 entities have been pre-accredited under the program. And this, I just mentioned, Madam Speaker, that under the ISO 9001 program, this is an international standard certification of public entities. During last year, 17 public sector entities entered into contractual arrangement with the National Certification Body of Jamaica, NCBJ, to be certified to the ISO 9001 Quality Management System standard. And to date, 8 of these entities have been certified, and the rest will shortly be certified. Yes. So, Madam Speaker, let me just say, as I wrap up with my conclusion, I just want to say, Madam Speaker, I recently assumed chairmanship of the National Competitiveness Council from my very able colleague Minister Darrell Vaz. Since its inception in 2010, this council has been charged to drive the implementation of business reforms in Jamaica. My commitment and passion as the investment minister is well known. Our work with the NCC has been focused on expediting reforms that will have an immediate impact on the business community and on the MSME sector. Madam Speaker, I have to say to you, as I said earlier, Jamaica has to rebuild our levels of productivity. We have to build our levels of efficiency. The data clearly shows that when labor productivity and capital productivity are resulting in a positive level of total factor productivity, when all of that happens, the country's growth rate will also trend up. And that we need our growth rate to start going back up to 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8%, Madam Speaker. So, in the past 2 quarters of the fiscal year, working closely with implementing agencies, the NCC has recorded significant reforms with the completion of the National Spatial Plan and the IT platform that will make it easier to access the spatial data needed to make development decisions. A lot more can be accomplished, Madam Speaker, and in all of this, I would like to speak briefly that digitization and automation are very important for the 4th industrial revolution now underway. Not just globally, but right here in Jamaica. The greatest gain of COVID-19 has been the accelerated use of e-commerce, online transactions, digitized forms of business and communication, the survival and recovery of our economy, our business and social interaction. I'm happy to note the increased use of digital platforms and systems throughout our own ministry. To name a few, the digitization of our business and trade facilitation process, digital payment system, market access, the Things Jamaica website under the theme Buy Jamaica, Click Jamaica. More than 2,000 products are now being offered on the website from Things Jamaica, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic is not over. However, we are in recovery mode. As a government, we know what is required of us. We have a duty of care to serve our people and to lead the way along the road to recovery. In every crisis, there's an opportunity to do better. And so as a country, we must seize this opportunity to increase Jamaica's capacity for renewed growth, revitalize industries, as we re-galvanize our efforts to achieve our national vision to increase well-being and the prosperity of our people. Building competitiveness, increasing our productivity levels are key components to this revival. This is a time to expand, to improve, to increase. The adversity of COVID-19 has reignited our entrepreneurial spirit and opened new doors for manufacturing and export while protecting our consumers. The adversity has launched a digital revolution, digitizing businesses, social interaction, and opening a way to the digital economy that presents opportunities to recover stronger and faster. Let us use this adversity well. As Jamaicans, we are part of one family, striving for a better country in a post-COVID era. As we stand together today at the door of opportunity, let us join virtual hands and hearts together, committed to a national resolve to surmount the COVID-19 challenge. Together, we will overcome. We'll recover stronger. We'll recover faster. We'll harness the greatness of this country through our MSMEs, our large businesses, our service sector, our agribusiness sector, and through our tourism sector. We'll be that ministry that works with and touches all other ministries to ensure that together we harness our audacity of hope to achieve a better Jamaica. Let us put our resilience to work as we overcome the challenges and recover stronger and faster. Thank you, Madam Speaker. May God bless us all, and may God bless Jamaica, land we love.
Member Phillips. Real leader.
Madam Speaker, I seek your permission to speak from a seat other than mine. Today, Madam Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to the sectoral debate on the housing, transport, and works portfolio. I will use this opportunity to evaluate and propose solutions for the various initiatives across the portfolio, but specifically on road maintenance and how it can be designed to provide greater benefit to the sector. It cannot be that every year we allocate funds for road maintenance and our road network remains in its present condition, causing risk and danger to the lives of motorists, residents, and visitors to the island. This presentation, Madam Speaker, will evaluate the state of neglect at the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, the non-existent transport policy, and the lack of vision of the Transport Ministry. Madam Speaker, we are in a tumultuous period due to the coronavirus pandemic. This presentation therefore takes into consideration our experience with the pandemic, how it has altered our lives beyond the way any one of us could have imagined. However, before getting into the main aspects of the presentation, I would like to acknowledge and express gratitude to a few persons who have made my journey and experience over the last few months better and more fulfilling. I start, Madam Speaker, with the acknowledgement that we are not alone. I have reason to believe that we are being guided by the awesome power of the Almighty, who continues to offer guidance and protection in much of what we do and is deserving of our praise and worship. As we go through the pandemic, we pray for continued mercies. I want to recognize and thank the people of Manchester Northwest for their continuous support and confidence in me as their Member of Parliament. Madam Speaker, I say it each time I am given the opportunity to speak in these debates. They are the reasons why I am here, and I will continue to do everything possible to make them proud of my representation in this honourable House. I would also like to express my appreciation to my parliamentary colleagues on both sides for their continued words of support and guidance, and to the Leader of the Opposition for his counsel and guidance. Madam Speaker, every politician in this building knows that we cannot accomplish what we do without family. My family, my wife, I want to pause to say happy anniversary to my rock, my wife, Shelley. And to my children, my two daughters, who have provided the support and encouragement to continue. And I'm deeply appreciative of their efforts in making our family engagements delightful and strong. And of course, Madam Speaker, to the member from East Central St. Andrew, my father. No one else in this Parliament, Madam Speaker, is so blessed to be serving 3 consecutive terms with their political mentor. Respect you. Madam Speaker, I will not be drawn out from the member. Madam Speaker, I agree with Minister Montague that transportation is one of those industries which remain absolutely necessary in every aspect of life and the Jamaican economy. I'll say it again. The transport sector is integral to the country's ability to build a robust economy and deliver sustained economic growth. No ad hoc or chaka-chaka system will bring us prosperity. We have to develop an efficient way to move people, cargo and services over land, sea or air, an efficient system. Last year, the Minister told in this Parliament, in his sectoral presentation entitled Charting the Course to Jamaica's Prosperity, that despite the results of this pandemic, we should have no fear. His government will weather any storm or recession because, as he claimed, better days are coming. Today, we have an opportunity to examine these and other outlandish assertions by the minister because, based on my assessment, some of the assurances are fleeting illusions. In fact, Madam Speaker, in a lot of ways, it feels like we are going backwards instead of forward, and it does not feel like better days are coming. We are living through a terrible nightmare. Therefore, I will use this presentation to assess the Minister's 2020 presentation. Public transportation, for example, Madam Speaker, is in the worse shape today than it was 2 years ago. In fact, the public transport sector continues to be in decline and is almost broken. We continue to endure the chaos, the lewdness continues, robot taxis continue, the playing of loud and vulgar music continues, the JUTC is not providing an efficient and modern bus system, and so, Madam Speaker, the public passenger transport system remains disorganized, dangerous, and demeaning. We will continue to raise questions about the so-called public transport plan. Every time the minister speaks, it sounds as if he is announcing a new plan. During his 2020 presentation, we were listening keenly for the unveiling of a practical transport plan which should incorporate the advances in technology and artificial intelligence to begin the modernization of our transportation system. However, as before, there has been no plan at all. We hope we hear something new this year. Despite the chaotic condition of our system, we have to extend our appreciation and gratitude to the staff of the JUTC and operators of public passenger transport for their heroic and dedicated effort in maintaining a working system during the heights of the coronavirus pandemic. Madam Speaker, I hope when the crisis is over and the country takes a stock of the contribution of those sacrifices made to bring us through, the staff of the JUTC and others in the public transport sector will be listed among the army of responders who delivered for Jamaica. Today, Madam Speaker, I want to use this presentation to highlight my latest concern on the operations of the JUTC and the overall management and movement of public passengers in the Kingston Metropolitan Transport Region. Last year, the Minister reported to the House during his sectoral debate that the JUTC was doing well and made approximately 55 million passenger trips in 2019-2020. He said further that with a robust repair program, we would be able to increase the passenger load. He also promised delivery on a range of projects during the year, including electric buses, more LNG units, Wi-Fi on 350 buses, a new time and attendance management system, vehicular locator technology, a fully cashless system, and 15 new buses. He even promised a mobile supermarket. Of course, these did not happen. Madam Speaker, the JUTC is now in full decline, heading for a catastrophic crash, which cannot be blamed on the pandemic, but rather on poor public transport policies and inept management. Madam Speaker, I have to ask the question, I have to ask whether it is the intention of the government to crash the JUTC. The facts are there to substantiate the predicament of the JUTC. Revenue is down, passenger ridership is down, bus availability is down, and bus run out has dropped to 50% of where it was 5 years ago. Wow. In truth, overall, the company is down by a half in bus operations and by more than 2/3 in fare box revenue. Yet despite these dismal numbers, the management remains in place. The unskilled, unqualified, and well-connected are being promoted in record time, as shown in recent Auditor General's report. Madam Speaker, the fare box has declined from over $400 million a month in 2015-16 to some $120 million a month, not too far from the over $200 million before the pandemic. In the same period, Madam Speaker, bus runout has declined from 450 daily in 2015 to 208 in 2021. Yeah. And even if the system did not require so many units because of school closure and the work from home, only 215 regular units and 25 premium units were available anyway. I know the minister may want to challenge these facts, but I am ready to defend them. The corporate operational plan table, as part of the public body's estimates of revenue and expenditure, document shows a drastically reduced service for the 21-22 financial year. Passengers will fall by 40% to 27.96 million, with an average load factor of 32%. Madam Speaker, this is a reduction from 52 million to 28 million in 2 years. Passengers in 2 years. The fare box will be 2.4 billion, which is even doubtful because all targets have been missed in the past few years. Last year, it was only 1.47 billion, in part due to the COVID pandemic. It seems the JUTC is projecting an operational loss. It seems the JUTC is projecting to operate less than 200 buses this year. And I hope the minister will give details in his presentation. It is no wonder hackney carriage operators, route taxis, and robots have taken over the JUTC routes, openly providing illegal stage carriage services in our franchise area, for which the JUTC is licensed as the exclusive carrier to provide 25,000 seats daily. Madam Speaker, the only bright spot is the perseverance of the workers who keep the fleet on the road without the requisite spare parts, drivers getting no units to operate, and all this throughout the perils of the COVID-19 pandemic. The present state of affairs at the JUTC demands rethinking and reimagining. Before any mischief, I mean an operational rethink in terms of the geographical service area, equipment, types of transit services, and how transit services are financed. This opposition is neither suggesting nor would support the closing down of the JUTC. And we will not support any return to the lick shot or the patty pan days of the 1980s, which followed the closure of the JUTC, of the JOS. Madam Speaker, the people of the KMTR, and indeed all of Jamaica, particularly transit-dependent commuters, deserve a modern and safe transport service. The education system and the productivity of workers in the public and private sector also require it. If Jamaica is to come out of the economic decline caused by the dual scourges of the pandemic and the lack of priority given to public transport by this administration. Madam Speaker, the minister also needed to tell the House, what is happening to the public passenger service being provided by the Montego Bay Metro Company. The service, which began in 1997 primarily as a school bus service, is now down to less than 5 operational units from 17. We had back to school yesterday. And only 5 buses was able to run out yesterday from Montego Bay Metro. A 5-unit service for the city of Montego Bay is inadequate and an insult to the people of our second city, which remains a tourism capital. Madam Speaker, we all heard the heartless announcement by the chairman last week that the company will not dedicate any units to students who returned to face-to-face classes just yesterday in preparation for exams. This is a consequence of the lack of priority by the government to provide adequate service with the provision of new units and spare parts. The financial forecast of a surplus of 105 million is wishful thinking, even against the government's commitment of 254 million promised. But, Madam Speaker, it is unrealistic to increase the fare box from 40 million to 70 million without significant importation of parts to make the units serviceable. I now turn to Works and the National Works Agency. The state of our roads and bridges and other infrastructure and the lack of commitment to maintain and upgrade critical interior road networks remains a concern. Madam Speaker, you may not know this, but the country's road network consists of almost 26,000 kilometers of roadway. Of this amount, the NWA owns 5,000 kilometers, or 20%, of the paved main road network. The parochial roads, which are under the control of the municipal councils, account for 15,000 kilometers. The Ministry of Agriculture claims 1,500 kilometers, and another 4,000 kilometers are classified as toll roads and community roads. The agency also maintains some 750 bridges and structures on its road networks. These are the facts. Approximately 55% of the main road network managed by the NWA is rated as bad, 30% fair, and 15% in good condition. The Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development reported that before October 2020 rain season, 20% of the roads it manages was in fair or good condition. 30% need periodic maintenance, and 50% need reconstruction or rehabilitation. Madam Speaker, I make this breakdown because too often we hear that due to ownership or who owns what section of the road network, the road cannot be repaired, and many of these roads are left with gaping potholes and missing surfaces and have become a menace and danger to motorists. The last time I spoke in these debates, I said that routine maintenance of our road infrastructure is suffering severely. And the Minister without portfolio came to the House with some standards for maintenance, and we're happy that he did. What we know for sure is that road maintenance is not sexy. It does not give the Prime Minister the opportunity for cutting ribbons, and we know he loves to. As parliamentarians, we know that maintenance work do not add many votes to the margins, but it is an important part of our road infrastructure development. No government, neither on this side or that side, has ever provided enough resources in any budget to effectively maintain our roads. In 2006, the Road Master Plan indicated that our road network was deteriorating faster than it could be repaired due to the lack of sufficient funding allocation. In summary, Madam Speaker, there is a need for a comprehensive road maintenance policy to guide our approach to road maintenance. We need to know when the conditions call for routine, periodic, or rehabilitative maintenance. As it stands now, some roads are repaired several times, while others remain listed and are not yet to see an inch of asphalt. According to the National Works Agency, $1 trillion, Jamaican dollars that is needed to bring our roads up to good standard. At minimum, a spend of about $7 to $10 billion annually could get us going in the right direction. Madam Speaker, our solution to the problem of long-term sustainable funding for road maintenance is to re-establish a road maintenance fund that would be independent of the consolidated fund. Madam Speaker, yes, we recall that it was our current Minister of Finance who piloted a bill in this Parliament to repeal the Road Maintenance Fund Act of 2002. The previous RMF inflows came from a special consumption tax on fuel at 33 1/3% of motor vehicle license and duties and other budgetary allocations. The Minister of Finance keeps reminding us that under his watch he has been able to find the resources to finance multiple infrastructure projects. I am sure that he would not mind allocating some of the revenues to a road maintenance fund. We have to think outside of the box, Madam Speaker. We cannot keep doing things the same way over and over. Research has shown that many developed countries have adopted the mechanism of a RMF, Road Maintenance Fund, because it has shown to be the most effective and unbiased way of financing road maintenance. Madam Speaker, there may be the need to combine the financing of all roads under one mechanism and authority. Any new legislation that may be contemplated as a solution to the establishment of the Road Maintenance Fund should not include the direct involvement of the political executive. There should also be a provision that the fund can only be used for road maintenance. Madam Speaker, although I have decided to reserve my substantive comments for the debate on the public procurement resolution tabled by the Minister of Finance and the Public Service concerning the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project, I will say a few words here. First of all, we share the sentiments of the Incorporated Master Builders Association of Jamaica that the arrangement or deal, as outlined by the Minister, is unacceptable. This arrangement with Jamaican taxpayers' money should not be accepted on the basis that the Chinese contractor had already conducted feasibility analysis and preliminary works. The Minister also defended the government's decision that Czech's involvement would infuse equity into the construction sector. What does that mean? Will the project be funded entirely by the taxpayers' money? The question I want to raise, Madam Speaker, is the Minister of Finance and, by extension, the government of Jamaica, admitting that the construction sector has not developed during this period to be able to build any bypass road? I hope we hear that later on. Madam Speaker, I use this opportunity to appeal to our motorists once again to obey the road codes and stop speeding. Too many of our citizens have perished needlessly because of non-compliance with the rules of the roads. Sadly, Madam Speaker, since the start of the year, over 149 deaths have resulted from 125 crashes. I've been saying for some time that the budgetary allocations to the unit are not sufficient for them to execute their mandate and achieve a reduction in road fatalities. I believe it is an appropriate time to resource the unit to ensure adequate promotion of road safety education and better driving and riding habits. Madam Speaker, I move to housing. I want to say at the outset, Jamaica needs a renewed urban and rural development framework. In an article in the Sunday Gleaner on May 2nd, 2021, a neighborhood association highlighted the dangers of poor land planning in Jamaica, where despite an increase in the development of our urban centers, we are still facing rapid urban decay. Madam Speaker, the association correctly described the situation as stifling in a concrete jungle. In Jamaica, we are currently faced with radically increasing housing densities and building heights unaccompanied by the actual improvements to the infrastructure. We cannot continue this way. Our current land planning policies, or lack thereof, encourage urban sprawl and environmental degradation. Madam Speaker, now more than ever, there is a need not just for urban renewal in Jamaica, but urban renewal in a sustainable way. The time has come to rethink our national policies on urban renewal, housing, and development. The government needs to focus on holistic development. Vision 2030 is a national development plan, not just a Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and Portmore plan. Also, currently, there is a great thrust towards urban renewal, but what about rural renewal? I would like to remind this Honourable House that rural constituencies like mine and many of us in here still struggle with access to essential resources like water, light, roads, and decent housing. You would understand what I'm speaking about, Madam Speaker. 2030 is only 9 years away, which means that we do not have much time to make Jamaica the place to live, work, raise families, and do business. But how can this take place when communities are still without access to essential services and we lag behind with appropriate legislation? Madam Speaker, we have two ministries that have overlapping functions and responsibilities for land planning: Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. Is there coordination between these ministries and supporting agencies as we strive towards renewal? Madam Speaker, the people of Jamaica are not seeing the coordination. We need an integrated model for urban and rural renewal. We need to recognize the importance of this renewal in addressing Jamaica's most pressing developmental issues. If we want to fix crime, if we want to address public health, and if we want to address environmental issues, then we should invest in urban and rural renewal. Madam Speaker, the government has a draft national spatial plan designed to support social and economic development to fulfill Vision 2030. The question is, when can we expect a final document? There are over 60 pieces of land, housing, and planning related legislation which have overlapping functions. With so many outdated laws governing land and planning matters, no wonder Jamaica continues to have land use and planning problems. How can a Local Improvement Act 1914
How much time? Madam Speaker, I now ask that the member's time for speaking be extended where he is given sufficient time to complete his presentation. Thank you.
The question before the House is that the member's time, the member
Every
be
time
given
I'm generous to ask for sufficient time, it goes on and on, you know. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is that the member be allowed sufficient time to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Those against? Member? Continue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Especially thank you to the member of Central Kingston. West Kingston. Sorry, my boss. West Kingston. How can a local improvement act, 1914, 107-year-old, or a town and country planning act of 1957, 64 years old, be the legislative tool to manage Jamaica's emerging issues in urban, rural, and land planning? Legislative reform is needed to improve the efficiencies in the planning environment. Madam Speaker, the opposition views urban and rural renewal as critical to social transformation. The purpose of renewal is to improve the quality of life of the affected community by improving environmental, social, and economic conditions. To achieve this, a modern governance framework is required. The Minister of National Security in February 2021 stated that an estimated US $1.2 billion will be spent to fight crime under Plan Secure Jamaica over the 7 years between 2016 and 2023. Madam Speaker, I want to remind this Honourable House that crime is a multifaceted problem. It is rooted in socio-economic determinants. We cannot fight crime with only policing and restricting the freedom of our citizens. We must recognize that redesigning urban spaces have the potential to contribute to economic development and public safety and security. Currently, 55% of our population reside in urban areas, and this is expected to increase to 58% by 2030. Inadequate urban planning has resulted in consequences that go far beyond environmental degradation and dilapidated housing. The government says it wants to fight crime. If they want to, they should invest in urban and rural renewal, which is ingrained in crime prevention through social development. Madam Speaker, we need our priorities right. Gender equality is an important priority on the national development agenda, as well as the global agenda. Madam Speaker, urban and rural renewal presents a unique opportunity to include gender mainstreaming in urban and rural planning. As the government strives to move towards the development of an urban and rural renewal framework, we must incorporate gender and women's issues when planning designs in urban spaces for infrastructure, housing, employment, and livelihoods. Madam Speaker, in preparing my contribution, I came across a quote by an American professor of sociology, Matthew Desmond, that summarizes what I want my colleagues and the nation to remember about the housing situation in Jamaica. And I quote, "We can start with housing, the sturdiest of footholds for economic mobility. A national affordable housing program would be an anti-poverty effort. Human capital investment, human improvement plan, and public health initiative all rolled in one." End quote. The government needs to focus on its implementation plan to ensure multi-sectoral coordination of the policy. Our people require tangible actions now. Every Jamaican should have access to housing, including every youth, working professional, women, poor, disabled, and most vulnerable citizens. Owning a house is empowering. There is an urgent need for a comprehensive housing policy. Time come. The people need action now. The people of this country don't need public relations. They want plausible actions. The National Housing Trust model is failing to provide affordable housing to address housing issues in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, Capri, in a recent study, described the NHT as a non-pro-poor policy. It further highlighted that high-income earners are twice as likely to get a mortgage from the National Housing Trust than low-income earners. Another survey conducted by the NHT reveals that during the period 2014 to 2017, only 20% of the survey sample was able to afford units in the range of 4 million to 4.9 million. It is possibly worse now. We note the statement by the Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change in his sectoral presentation last week, that the government is working with developers to bring housing units down to an average cost of 5 million for a standard one-bedroom unit and 8 million for a two-bedroom unit. PIOJ in the 2018 Social and Economic Survey says on average, 3 persons reside in a household in Jamaica. Imagine a household of 3 that can only afford a one-bedroom house for $5 million. Where is decent and affordable housing for the poor? Is this prosperity? Madam Speaker, in summary, I would like to make the following recommendations. That we create an urban and rural renewal framework that integrates best practices in sustainable development. Mainstream gender and community engagement in participation in the urban and rural process. Improve monitoring of multi-agency activities and program maintenance and the management of urban and rural planning projects. That we create youth-friendly infrastructure, such as areas for sporting activities, green spaces, and libraries in urban and rural communities. That we integrate information communication technologies in urban and rural renewal planning to address the gaps in monitoring data surrounding housing costs and prices in the housing market. And that we developed a comprehensive database on housing across the island to inform the implementation of the national housing policy. Madam Speaker, the government must do the right thing as we work towards a vision that sees viable housing opportunities for all. That is all we seek. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I have set out today a vision and pathways for the critically important physical infrastructure sector, which lays the foundation for a better quality of life for our people. Indeed, our people deserves better. We must end the incessant talking and the persistent writing of studies and move to take decisions and implement them because the people deserve better. The people will not continue to be patient with us while life becomes more difficult and brutish for so many of them. These debates are usually the place for criticism and attack, but today I've opened a storehouse of ideas that will better our people if implemented. Indeed, it will help you to build back stronger. We agree on both sides that more can be done. Indeed, more must be done for the people of Jamaica. Housing has to be more than concrete edifices, but must now be set in a new context of improved urban and rural quality of life which our people deserve. Housing policy must not be divorced from the social policy, public security, and economic livelihood. Public transport must be revisited because the movement of people is critical to economic growth. There is no prosperous country where people cannot get to their destination in reasonable time, safely and cost-effectively. The road environment must be addressed as we develop a new culture of maintaining our road network, not just focusing on new highways, but how to keep our minor roads, communities and farm roads connected to the highway system. Our people deserve no less. Madam Speaker, if there's one good in the pandemic, it gives us the opportunity to reset and do things better, because our people deserve better. These debates can really help us to shape this agenda of making things better, and we hope that those who are charged with the executive responsibility to listen and adopt, because our people deserve much better. I thank you, Madam Speaker. May God continue to bless our people and Jamaica, land of our birth.
Madam Speaker, excellent presentations. I want to congratulate the presenters, Minister Shaw and MP Phillips. Now, Madam Speaker, I now ask that the debate be suspended.
The question before the House is that the sectoral debate be now suspended. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. The debate is suspended.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to indicate that the debate on the Public Procurement National Development Project, Montego Bay Perimeter Road Order, that this debate will resume at this time, and I would ask that members who wish to contribute to do so now, after which the Honourable Prime Minister will close the debate. Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Madam Speaker, I have some concerns about the order which was tabled in Parliament by the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, on the surface, it appears as if this order is designed to deliberately and consciously circumvent the procurement processes of the country. Madam Speaker, while there is no gainsaying, you can respond when I'm finished. You can respond when I'm finished. While there is no gainsaying the importance of this project, and I would never challenge the importance of this project, I do not believe this order is necessary for this project. Madam Speaker, I want to first, my colleague dealt with the issue of the awarding of a contract to a particular supplier. We have in the past, previous administrations, based on loan funds that we have received, we have had conditionalities where we have been directed to work with contractors of a particular country. In this case, this is totally Jamaican taxpayers' funds. And in those circumstances, I don't believe there's any justification for excluding Jamaican contractors and suppliers directly as the main contractors. The second issue I would raise relates to how do we determine value for money and the price of this contract in the absence of any competitive bidding process, or in the absence of a mechanism to determine whether, if the contractor says it should be $10, you can determine that it should be $8, or it really is $8, and that what is being quoted is consistent with market rates and conditions. Nothing has been said so far that there is going to be a mechanism, whether it be a negotiating team on behalf of the government, to validate what has been presented as the rates and the value for money. The third thing, Madam Speaker, nothing has been said about how subcontracting is going to be dealt with. In strict terms, subcontracting is really between the main contractor and those he or she chooses to contract to. But in circumstances like this, where it is totally being funded by taxpayers, it is important that the process for selecting subcontractors has some transparency, and that persons who are being selected as subcontractors go through a process where we can determine that they have the capacity to do the work, they have the experience, and what those subcontracts are consistent with market rates. And Madam Speaker, we are also concerned about the mechanisms that will be in place to ensure effective monitoring of this project in the absence of any of the procurement rules that exist, to again ensure that value for money is received on behalf of the taxpayers. When this order was done, there are many projects that I could categorize as falling in this one. We have done highways before. And even if you decide that you're going to do sole sourcing, that is allowed within our procurement rules. So I don't believe there is any need to circumvent the procurement rules by going this order. And from the surface, Madam Speaker, I do not believe mechanisms are in place to ensure that taxpayers get value for money for this massive project, which is totally being funded by taxpayers, particularly in an environment where there's a scarcity of resources. So we have some deep concerns on this side about how this project is going to be implemented, and we would need more assurances, more than what has been presented by the Minister of Finance so far, that will ensure that we get value for money, that Jamaicans are not excluded from this project, that subcontracting is done in a transparent manner, and that the monitoring and evaluation is in place to protect it. Again, we are not questioning the importance or the necessity of the project. That's not the issue. I agree it has to be done, because you can't spend 4 hours going from one side of Mobile to another. So that's not in question. It is the process by which it is being done that we have an issue with, and we would like those questions to be answered to our satisfaction so that taxpayers can be assured that their dollars are being protected. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, this is about the award of a $30 billion contract, funded by taxpayers, being awarded without any regard to the financial benefit or competitive bidding and procurement transparency. The primary reason advanced by the government for using this route, as stated by Minister Clark, Nigel Clark, in Parliament last Wednesday, quoting him, because the Chinese contractors had already conducted feasibility analysis and preliminary works. Madam Speaker, this is a total and complete nonsense and cannot be accepted by the Jamaican taxpayer or the local construction industry. Jamaicans are to be satisfied with the fact that the government has inserted in the contract, or as stated by the Minister of Finance last week, that the JIC rates should be observed. Madam Speaker, this has been a vexed question for years with this particular contractor. In Jamaica, the laws and the rules of Jamaica apply to all. It should apply to all. In the construction industry, our Jamaican workers, be it a foreign entity doing work here in Jamaica or a local entity, should observe our rules and laws here and the standards. And both administrations shouldn't feel pleased, as the minister said, we should feel good that it is now included. But the workers working with this contractor has been crying for years. And it shouldn't be that we are now celebrating the fact that it is now included. Because that is no victory for the workers. In fact, Madam Speaker, if the government was really to look out for Jamaican contractors, it would have included in the agreement that local construction firms must be given certain packages on this project, just as you did, Prime Minister, on the South Coast Highway from St. Thomas, the St. Thomas leg. But when we talk about that, as if we have no company in Jamaica that is able to carry out a project like this, when it is an entity such as the National Contracts Commission, which approve contractors, grading them 1, 2, 3, 4, saying that they have the ability to carry out projects like these. But now when time comes and it is taxpayers' money, none of them are equipped to. Then something is wrong with the grading process of the NCC then, if that is so. Our grade 1 contractors have become subcontractors for foreign firms for a very long time. And we're not saying on this side that we are not appreciative of the effort of these companies and that the project, as Member Robinson stated, that it is a needed project. Because we on this side have also spoken about the importance of that project when we were on that side. But we feel that the workers and Jamaican contractors have been shafted for a very long time on some of these projects. Madam Speaker, this project has been in the planning stages for many years. Through several administrations, it clearly does not fit the circumstances under which it was envisioned that this extraordinary provision would be used. The government, of course, has a majority, so they can propose and dispose with its parliamentary strength. Madam Speaker, I hope they reconsider. It will erode the gains made in our procurement system and in the process of transparency and openness in our contract award process. We saw when a similar matter was done with the police used car, and you see what happened. One will recall that the first major toll road project in Jamaica, Highway 2000, was designed by a consortium of local and international engineers. This design and other studies included traffic studies and geotechnical and hydraulic surveys, which formed the basis for invitations locally and internationally for bids to undertake the project under the public-private partnership model. Close to 67 expressions of interest were received, with Boye, after an intense and transparent process, selected as a preferred bidder. And we have no problem if this contractor is selected in such a process. So, Madam Speaker, I beg the Prime Minister and the government to rethink in the estimate of expenditure. It shows that a revised estimate from the $6.1 billion that would have been the government's portion if they had taken the loan, to a revised total estimate cost of $30.377 billion of taxpayers' money, because as in the words of the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister, it will be financed 100% by the taxpayers of this country. And we feel on this side that the process ought to be more transparent. Because if that is the case, what is it that the contractor is charging for these preliminary works? And I understand the Prime Minister is going to get up and he's going to say that if they go to another contractor, the project will be 2 years down the road because there's going to be a delay. We understand that. But the country needs to know the process. Normally, when we're going to sole sourcing, the NCC and the Integrity Commission would have a say. Have they had a say in this? It's a question you can answer, Prime Minister. So, as I end, Madam Speaker, let's hope that good sense will prevail in this instance. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I thank my colleague members on this side who have stated some real concerns around the process which we are being asked to bless here. Madam Speaker, a foreign multinational contractor is getting a multi-billion-dollar contract for this Mobe bypass project. And the government of Jamaica is proposing to waive the normal requirements for a transparent procurement process involving competitive bidding. I have some real concerns about this, and I will speak to them this afternoon. First of all, the Public Procurement Act 2015 provides for a waiver of compliance with national procurement rules for national development projects that have been approved of such by Cabinet and by Parliament. Now, one issue, which is a sort of preliminary issue of concern that I have, is that the order that the Minister signed, and which he tabled last week and had wanted to get approval for last week, had I not objected to the rushing through of this thing, says in the preamble that the Honourable Houses of Parliament approved the declaration of a development project known as the Montego Bay Perimeter Road Project to be a national development project. Now, Madam Speaker, I checked, and I didn't think there had been any approval given, contrary to what the order says, by Parliament. I checked, and it was confirmed that no such approval has been given. The order itself, which is a signed order seeking to be affirmatively approved by this House and by the Senate in due course, doesn't provide in it any approval of the project as a national development project. The role of the order is not to do that. The role of the order is to exempt the project from the provisions of the Public Procurement Act 2015. When you look at the Public Procurement Act 2015, it defines a national development project as meaning a development project approved by the Cabinet and Parliament. The order is bad on its face and should be withdrawn because it has not been approved by Parliament. The only reason why this has come to Parliament is because there's a transparency requirement in the Act of 2015, which is that an affirmative resolution of both houses is required before the Minister of Finance can waive compliance with the procurement rules. So, Madam Speaker, that's a preliminary issue. It's a legal issue. And in my view, this order is bad on its face and must be withdrawn because it states that Parliament has approved this as a national development project and it has not done so. Furthermore, and this is a substantive point now, as has been said, the procurement rules of this country are a vital process to protect Jamaican taxpayers from the waste or other misuse of public funds that happens frequently when government is purchasing goods or services. The provision for a waiver of those critical rules is only appropriate where it is necessary to enable large, complex, and important projects to proceed. This road project is large, and $30 billion is a lot of money, but it is not unusual or complex as a project. Jamaica has been building new major roads and highways for a long time now. There is no compelling need for the procurement rules to be waived for this project. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, major road projects are generally very expensive, which is why it's absolutely important to ensure that taxpayers get value for money in doing these projects. The best way of ensuring value for money is by allowing competitive bidding by qualified contractors. And perhaps the signature project of the last 2 decades, which was what is now called the East-West Highway, went through such a process, and a good road was built as a result. Madam Speaker, competitive bidding is a tried and tested way of ensuring value for money in public procurement for large projects. And without it, there can be no certainty of value for money because the process involves no transparent price discovery. Madam Speaker, this Montego Bay bypass project differs from the other major road projects in recent years in a fundamental way, though, and that is how it is being financed. Most of the past projects of this nature that we have had in recent years were financed by loans, and in the case of the projects done by China Harbour, loans from Chinese government lending agencies. This time, the project is to be financed entirely by Jamaican taxpayers from the annual budget. That is what we were told. We were told that by the Minister of Finance and by the Prime Minister in the budget debate. This means that the previous compelling reason for going with a foreign contractor without a competitive bidding process, which was that was a basis on which the financing was available, does not arise in this case and is no longer a reason for going that route. Why has the government skirted around ensuring a transparent procurement process since this project has been in the planning stage for a long time now? It seems far too convenient to come here with this request for a waiver of transparent procurement requirements at this 11th hour. Madam Speaker, the main reason for this waiver that has been provided by the Minister of Finance and before him the Prime Minister in his contribution to the budget debate is that it would be unfair to the contractor, China Harbour in this instance, to pursue a competitive bidding process because they've already done design work and other preliminary work in anticipation of getting the contract, which would have been guaranteed for them if, as had been originally anticipated, the project was being financed by lending agencies of the Chinese government. That is not the case, as we have said. But, Madam Speaker, I am much less concerned about that than I am about being fair to the Jamaican people. Taxpayers will bear the burden of any additional costs in doing this project, which could have been avoided if it had been priced by a transparent, competitive bidding process. We should be worried about being fair to the Jamaican people ahead of the commercial interests of a foreign multinational company. I have no difficulty with Jamaica paying them a fair amount for the value of the preparatory works that they have already done. But just to give this foreign multinational the project at some negotiated price arrived at behind closed doors, without allowing other interested and qualified contractors to bid for the work, provides no transparency and no assurance of Jamaica getting value for taxpayers' money. And that is not being fair to the Jamaican people. In fact, there's a better way to describe it. It is selling out the Jamaican people. Madam Speaker, the four nice-sounding requirements of this order, the four nice-sounding, and I will remind you what they are. Firstly, that a percentage of workers employed by the contractor must be Jamaicans. Secondly, training programs to transfer knowledge and technology. Thirdly, wages at rates set by the Joint Industrial Council, something which this contractor has notoriously not complied with in other projects that it has done here. And fourthly, using locally made inputs, if available. Apply only to China Harbour Engineering Company Limited in the execution of works under the project. And I quote, those words are quoted from the order. Apply only to China Harbour Engineering Company Limited in the execution of works under the project. Madam Speaker, many Jamaicans will be very skeptical about these nice-sounding conditions, and with good reason. Jamaica's record at monitoring and enforcing conditions imposed on foreign multinationals, whether in the bauxite and alumina industry or in infrastructure projects, is woeful. They are allowed to ignore conditions and to proceed as they like with impunity. Madam Speaker, if technology transfer to the local construction industry hasn't happened in the last 12 years, why would it start now? Why would it start now? Madam Speaker, the Finance Minister's notion that after this road is built, our locals will be able to design and build one is insulting to our Jamaican professionals and Jamaican contractors who have been building roads for many years. And it is also misleading, Madam Speaker, because China Harbour has designed the road already, and there is no practical means of local input. There is also plenty of evidence of roads being built by this foreign multinational, suffering from flooding, as in the case of Marcus Garvey Drive, and being damaged by landslides because of inadequate shoring up of the adjoining slopes, as in the 2018 landslide along the North-South Highway. And this, again, brings into question value for money in this matter. Madam Speaker, apart from the legal point I raised earlier, which is that the order is bad on its face because it misrepresents a critical parliamentary process which has not yet been complied with and which is a condition in the statute before the minister can grant any such waiver. There are some other things that make this order, this waiver order, defective. Firstly, Madam Speaker, the waiver should expressly ensure that all subcontractors and other entities down the chain of contracts are only accepted if they agree to pay the Joint Industrial Council rates to the workers on the project. The order fails to do so. This is a big loophole which must be fixed before a parliament approves any waiver. Secondly, the waiver should also expressly require that all subcontractors and other entities down the chain of contracts are Jamaicans. It fails to do so. Again, that is another deficiency in the order which should be fixed before Parliament approves a waiver. Thirdly, the waiver should expressly require this foreign multinational to ensure that the other three specified requirements, other than the one dealing with wage rates, which I've spoken to already, the other three about percentage of workers that must be Jamaicans as a minimum, the training programs for knowledge transfer and technology, and using locally made inputs if available. Those three must also be extended to benefit any subcontractors and their employees. The order fails to do so. That is another big loophole which must be fixed before Parliament approves any such waiver. Madam Speaker, like my colleagues, I readily acknowledge that this Mobe bypass road is well needed. It has been recognized as such from as far back as when the Most Honourable P.J. Patterson was Prime Minister. The people of Montego Bay and the surrounding communities want it and they deserve it. But, Madam Speaker, principle is principle. And I cannot support the way this is being done by the government. In failing to assure value for money via a transparent procurement process, this waiver creates opportunities for cronyism, partisanship, and corruption. And even if one were to accept the lack of transparency inherent in waiving the need for a transparent procurement process, the waiver brought here by the Finance Minister is defective for the 4 reasons I have provided, one of which is a legal reason, and the other of which are policy deficiencies inherent in the way it has been drafted. Madam Speaker, the Jamaican people deserve better, and I do not support the approval of this order. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am taking this matter on behalf of the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the members opposite who have participated in this debate and have expressed important opinions, some of which are valid. And I want to say from the outset that the government thought long and hard about going this route before we entered upon it, because we are quite seized of all the issues as it relates to the contracting with overseas firms, issues of securing value for money, the transparency of the use of public funds, all the issues that have been raised here quite ably by members of the opposition. So it is not a matter that we take lightly. I would also want to say, Madam Speaker, that this is not a route that should be used with any form of frequency, precisely for the reasons that have been raised. But I wish to point out, Madam Speaker, that it was the government at the time, led by our friends opposite, who made a change to the procurement guidelines in 2015. Madam Speaker, and they did it for good reason, because it was quite clear that the old procurement rules could not facilitate the level of development that we wanted and the speed of development. I recall a sort of a conversation between myself and the then Minister of Finance, who former leader of the opposition, who is not here. I wished he were, because he could verify, where we pointed out, we were discussing the issue of strategic investments, that we needed to have a special legislation to deal with strategic investments to move them through quickly. It was at the same time, Madam Speaker, that by virtue of the IMF framework, we had revised many of our laws to clarify and to give institutional definition around things like incentives and so forth. And it was a sentiment shared across the floor, yes, that this needed to be done, that there will be, at some point in Jamaica's development, special projects that are large and complex and frontier projects that would require the government to enter into direct contracting. I believe that this project is one of them. I believe that the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, as acknowledged by the opposition spokesman on Transport and Works, as acknowledged by the opposition spokesman on Technology and by the leader of the opposition, that it is a national project. And I think there is no debate on that. I don't think that the leader of the opposition is proposing that we divide on whether or not the Montego Bay Perimeter Road is a national project, which leads me to respond to the issue he raised about the form in which the order is taken. The order is taken in two parts, the order itself and the resolution. And the order gives the waiver, the exemption, whatever you want to call it, the exception from the procurement rules, and it also outlines the conditions of the exceptions that are given. The resolution on which we are debating, because, Madam Speaker, it is the resolution that will affirm the order, so to speak. And so the resolution is clear. The resolution says, now therefore be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. 1, this resolution may be cited as the Public Procurement National Development Project, Montego Bay Perimeter Road Project Order 2021 Resolution. 2, the declaration of a development project known as the Montego Bay Perimeter Road Project to be a national development project to which the Act or any provisions thereof shall apply is approved. So, Madam Speaker, to satisfy the leader of the opposition, I could at this point take my seat, but before taking my seat, I could ask, Madam Speaker, that we approve the Perimeter Road resolution. We could, just for proper form. And maybe I will do that, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, just sorry, Prime Minister. Just on a point over, I just want to make the point that the order that is here, signed by the Minister, is dated the 5th of May. It's dated the 5th of May, and it states in it that the Honourable House of Parliament approved the declaration of a development project known as the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, which is not true and was not true at the date it was made. That's the point I'm making.
So Madam Speaker, whilst I understand what the leader of the opposition is saying, I'm saying that this order is not yet in effect until we have approved it here. So as to whether or not it is true at the point of us debating it is immaterial. It becomes true at the point of our approval. So, Madam Speaker, if it is just for form, we could take them in order, or we could take them together. They both become true at the same time when the House votes. Yeah, and I'm saying the two things. One is the order giving the exemptions, and the other is the resolution saying that the project is a national project. So I'm just saying, Madam Speaker, that we could take it or we could proceed. Madam Speaker, I'm choosing to proceed. Madam Speaker, so that's an important point that I believe we have addressed. Now, Madam Speaker, the opposition spokesman on Transport and Works pointed out that it is time that we get things done in a timely fashion and we must act. That has always been my mantra. Getting things done. And Madam Speaker, let me tell you that I keep using this term bureaucracy, and people ask me, why do I like to use that term? It is such a negative term. And I keep saying to people, bureaucracy is not it's not a negative term. Bureaucracy is important. When a country has a strong bureaucracy, it is the signal of institutional development. It can get things done in order.
And in good time.
And in good time. Bureaucracy doesn't mean inefficiency. Madam Speaker, where we are in our development as a country is that we are developing our public administration, and Jamaica has done very well in expanding its public administration. We now have many institutions that deal with integrity and transparency and compliance. We have institutions that deal with procurement. We have institutions, Madam Speaker, that we've always had that deals with oversight of our parliamentary operations. We have institutions in our public administration that deals with our fiscal affairs, the management of our fiscal accounts and so forth. And we keep expanding them. The challenge now, Madam Speaker, is how to get them all to work together very quickly. We have added recently a public sector investment element of our public administration. And it can become overwhelming. But as we progress through exercises like these in Parliament and we debate what we need to do, our public sector agents develop a better understanding of how the public sector works and works together. So, Madam Speaker, where we are now is not trying to circumvent the very institutions that we have debated here in Parliament and established. What we are trying to do is to make them work as we have defined them. And the presentations by the leader of the opposition and others would want to suggest that in some way the government is acting outside of the established institutions, outside of the law, that the government is acting in a way illegally. Madam Speaker, I rush to the discerning ears and listeners to say that that is not the case. The very people who would want to create that narrative were the very people who created the law to allow for this. And we, Madam Speaker, on this side, carried it through with regulations in 2018. Because it is well understood that this is an important part of our procurement process. And it is not unusual, Madam Speaker. It is not unusual to Jamaica. It can be found in other countries, in other jurisdictions where there are these provisions. They have these provisions for national defense reasons, and they have these provisions for national project and development reasons, and they have these provisions for strategic reasons. So it's not unusual. Now, Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition went to great lengths to make a profound point. The point that the leader of the opposition was making, Madam Speaker, is that this kind of exception is different from others that could have been made because you're making an exception on Jamaican taxpayers' funds. And therefore, we should take greater precaution to protect Jamaican taxpayers' funds. And I agree with you, Leader of the Opposition. We must make every effort to ensure that not 1 cent of Jamaican taxpayers' resources is wasted. Not 1 cent. So, Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition then totally ignored that there was a process in place started by this administration with JD, but continued and expanded by the administration led by members on that side called MIDP, where multiple times what we are proposing to spend here was negotiated. And there was no concern then that there was any concern about value for money. Where was the concern about value for money when the then government, no opposition?
Can I raise another point of order? The Prime Minister has said there was no concern when we were on that side about value for money with MIDP. Let me explain what took place under MIDP. Because his statement is misleading the House. His statement is misleading the House that there was no concern. His statement is misleading the House.
Hold a minute.
Misleading the House that there was no concern.
Member, if you rise on a point of order, then what I want you to do is to say exactly what your point of order is, not to do an explanation.
Sure. The point of order is that the Prime Minister is misleading the House by saying there was no concern on this side about value for money with MIDP. That is my point of order.
Thank you. We have taken the point.
Madam Speaker, so that we don't get sidetracked from the issues, because my intention is not to be contentious. My intention is to help the public to understand what it is we are doing and to remove any shroud of lack of transparency that is being created. I will then rephrase what I was saying. In the same way that the opposition is no concern about this exception that we are creating by approving this order, which will allow us to directly contract with China Harbour. That level of concern should have been expressed with equal energy and vociferousness at that time, because, Madam Speaker, though, hold on, because at that time, under that arrangement, even though it was a loan, today Jamaica's taxpayers' money is paying back for those loans. So, Madam Speaker, I just want the public to understand. We on this side don't sit here neglecting your best interest, as would be the suggestion of the opposition. Why is this in Jamaica's best interest? Madam Speaker, first point is that the model of bilateral arrangements which result in direct contracting is a model that Jamaica can say we have benefited from. We can point to several projects that have been done as a result of that. Now, that model of the bilateral arrangement with our strategic trade partner, China, comes with certain conditions. There are conditions on the loans, there are conditions on the materials used, there are conditions on the concessions that we would have had to give, there are conditions on the labor that is used. And if you're asking about transparency, hold on. And if you're asking about transparency, Madam Speaker, you are not allowed to share the contracting documents and the loan documents. So that arrangement is, Madam Speaker, when you talk, if there were to be, in other words, the concern that the opposition has come here today with, those should have been made when they were engaging in the bilateral. Indeed. No, Madam Speaker, that is not transparent by any measure. No, Madam Speaker. We engaged with the government of China and with China Harbour on a bilateral basis in somewhere about 2016, 2017, thereabouts, to do the perimeter road. Now, bear in mind, Madam Speaker, that there is no divide about doing the perimeter road, as has been expressed. This is being touted now for 20 years that we should have done it. We came on board and we said, you know what, let's move this thing ahead. Yes. Madam Speaker,
we'll keep the people informed. You object to the road.
Upon reviewing our fiscal affairs, we found, Madam Speaker, that it was in the best interest of Jamaica not to pursue another loan from our strategic partners in China. Now, Madam Speaker, I want it to be clear. China has been very helpful to Jamaica. And we are most grateful for the support and assistance that China has given to us. In difficult times when nobody remembered Jamaica or would invest in Jamaica. But we always act with principle and in our interest. And it was in our interest to change the relationship from a borrowing one to one where we can finance projects or China can invest strongly in Jamaica. And that is what we have now, Madam Speaker, an investing relationship. Now, Madam Speaker, a further point on this. It is also in Jamaica's interest to operate in good faith. Yes. Very key when we're dealing with bilateral and international relations. Now, China Harbour engaged with us and the government of China, the Exim Bank of China, engaged with the government of Jamaica in good faith on the same mechanism as was done under Mid-P. Yes. Same mechanism. And therefore, China Harbour went ahead, Madam Speaker, and made investments in doing the pre-feasibility, in doing their geotechnical and other such works. They would have mobilized, Madam Speaker, they would have mobilized for this project with the expectation, Madam Speaker, that they are going to get this project. We, in the middle of it, changed our position and decided that we would no longer go the route of borrowing. We would fund it out of our cash flow. our budget. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, let's look at this procurement process. Yes, we could say, let's put it to tender. Now, the tender process for this, with the best effort, would be a year, or probably a little bit more than a year, with the best effort. In fact, it probably would be more, because other contractors coming in would ask for two things. One, they would say, for me to come into this process as a new contractor, China Harbour would have to be excluded, because China Harbour would have an unfair competitive advantage. And if you were to exclude China Harbour, definitely the period would be more protracted, because a new contractor coming in, or new contractors coming into a procurement process, would want to be able to verify the risk of the RFP, of the proposal, the tender documents that are put out. And to tender on a highway like this, Madam Speaker, it's not, you know, it's not building a road somewhere. It's a long process.
It's a greenfield project.
It's a long process. So, Madam Speaker, we analyzed all of that, and we looked at what is in Jamaica's interest by virtue of time, because you know, Madam Speaker, the longer we wait to do this, the more the price of the project is going to escalate. So we looked at what was in Jamaica's best interest. Now, having said all of that, we come now to the real core of what the leader of the opposition and others who have spoken have said. The issue of value for money. The issue of value for money, as I said, existed under the bilateral contracting process, and it is an issue here. Now, how did we get around this issue of value for money? Meaning, how did we guarantee or give as high a possibility of guarantee of securing value for money to the Jamaican public? Well, there are a couple of things. One, Madam Speaker, this project will be designed according to what is called, let me make sure that I have the right terminology, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. So that along, Madam Speaker, with ISO standards and our quality management plan, will ensure that the quality of the work is guaranteed. So whoever, Madam Speaker, will be the project engineer or the project supervisor, that is the standard against which they will be judging all output relative to payment. So there is an open source standard that anyone can look at and say, was, you know, for argument's sake, 3 inches of asphalt placed on the road. That is the standard required. And I don't know what that standard is. I'm just saying that for argument's sake. Or were they, you know, a certain PSI, pound per square inch of concrete put down? That can always be tested. So there are standards that are open and transparent, and it is to those standards that the works will be assessed. So that's number one. Madam Speaker, number two, Jamaica developed, the NWA specifically, a system that they call their negotiating team. It's their value for money negotiating mechanism. And that negotiating mechanism pulled on experts in the field, public officials working in, at the time, the NWA, NROC and other areas. And that negotiating team would negotiate the price of every element of the contract with China Harbour. That is what was done under MIP. And that is how we were able to secure, as best as possible, outside of a competitive process, value for money. So we have a process in place, of which the opposition well knows. The member from Northwest Manchester said, yes, the Prime Minister is going to stand up and tell you that this process is in place, because obviously he has asked and he has been told that there is this process in place even when we were doing the bilateral contracting arrangement, from which we got JDIP and MIP. And, Madam Speaker, let's expand the minds of Jamaicans listening. Even in a competitive contract, Madam Speaker, there is still some level of negotiation that you will have to do. And let us also be clear. A competitively led contract does not always lead to the best result. Most times it will, but not all the time. Because, Madam Speaker, from where I sit in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, sometimes, Madam Speaker, we have selected on competitive bids the lowest cost tenders. And you know what that, Madam Speaker? After we select them, they end up can't do the job for the price they promise. We end up having to go and negotiate with them. And we end up, Madam Speaker, paying much higher than what they told us they could do it for. So, Madam Speaker, I'm not in any way trying to diminish the value of competitive tenders. It is important, no, but we must expand the conversation, because in trying to create a negative narrative, we as public opinion, as public leaders, Madam Speaker, we have a duty to bring knowledge to the people. Can't be just one-sided in our conversation. So, this is a discretion provided in the law for the government to use. And it is not a discretion that should be used arbitrarily or wantonly. And the government is seized of it, which is why I am happy for this debate to explain to the public that the government isn't doing anything nefarious or hiding anything or trying to, in some way, create. At some point, you have to have some faith in your government that the government is going to act in your best interest. So, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, you can't run a government without the people believing in it. No matter what you think. Our governments, on this side and that side, we have made many mistakes. But as we progress as a nation, we have to learn from those mistakes. And at some point in time, if we're going to develop, governments have to lead with maturity. Yeah, we have to lead with maturity, and we are taking here a mature decision. It's a mature decision to come out of a borrowing relationship. It is a mature decision to step out of a bilateral contracting process and go into one where there will be greater transparency than if we had contracted bilaterally. Because all of these documents, Madam Speaker, as it relates to the contract, will be public. An important question was asked, will the Integrity Commission be invited to serve? Madam Speaker, I recall sitting in this house, I was on that side at the time, on the opposition side, and there was a big debate undertaken about whether or not the Contractor General should be involved in pre-contractual negotiations. You remember that, leader of the opposition? So to come today and ask that question as to whether or not, oh, you weren't there, right? As to whether or not the Integrity Commission will be brought in before we enter a contract phase. We went, that side, when they were the government, went to court to prevent the contractor general from being involved in the pre-contracting phases. I mean, it's as if we have short memories. But, Madam Speaker, yes, we have no objections to that. And the team that we are putting forward will be a multi-sectoral, fairly broad-based team that can sit opposite the China Harbour people and bring levity, understanding, and reason to prices. So I'm expecting, Madam Speaker, that prices will be moderated and approximate competitive prices. No, Madam Speaker. So we are embracing transparency as a means of ensuring value for money. So, Madam Speaker, I believe I have gone through all the reasons. We have ensured that we have put in place conditions that will be beneficial to the people of Jamaica. 90% of the employment on the contract must be Jamaican. The workers on the contract must be paid at the JIC rates, that is the industry standard rates. Important question was raised, I believe it was raised by the leader of the opposition, well, all three speakers, regarding outlining in the contract how subcontracting will operate. Madam Speaker, under Mid-P, there was an arrangement which specified how subcontracting will be done. The same process, Madam Speaker, will be followed as it relates to how subcontracting will be done. Remember now, Madam Speaker, that wasn't placed in any order. That was placed in the contract. So when we come to the contracting now, we wouldn't put that in an order. We put that in the contract. So when we come to the contracting process though, that exact same procedure will be followed, meaning, Madam Speaker, that it goes to a competitive process and they go through and select based upon a competitive process. The same process which is now being used for the South Coast Road Improvement Project, which is competitive. The contractors go, they bid, they get selected. So that is established, and that is in the interest of Jamaicans. Then, Madam Speaker, the issue was raised, why are we shutting out local contractors? Madam Speaker, as I say, from where I sit, I have seen vast improvements in the capabilities of our local contractors. They are taking on now multi-billion-dollar projects, several at the same time. There is no argument, no question. There are some contractors who simply don't have the capacity. And we see it in overruns, we see it in delaying works, but we are developing a core competence in contracting. The question, however, Madam Speaker, is, for example, a contract like this would come with the requirement of multi-billion dollars in bonds. Would we be able to find the contractors who would be able to mobilize the several $billion in performance bonds to do it? Right? Madam Speaker, and there are other issues regarding, the mobilization of equipment, the mobilization of, highly technical skills. The leader of the opposition says it's a big project, but it's not complicated. I think the leader of the opposition should acquaint himself with the project, because it does require, as it did with the completion of the Northwest link, the North-South link, where significant geotechnical work had to be done. This will require significant geotechnical work to be done as well, in addition to the construction of a major bridge, which is over, I don't remember the length of the bridge, but it's a pretty substantial length. So, Madam Speaker, it is not a simple project. My expectations, Madam Speaker, is that there will be significant subcontracting happening here. So So Jamaican contractors will benefit from this. The other point, Madam Speaker.
Prime Minister, just before the time, we've exceeded the time for you to speak. So let me pause and ask that permission be granted. Permission be granted to the Prime Minister to continue his presentation.
All right,
Madam Speaker,
go ahead.
Madam Speaker, if it so pleases you, the time allotted for the Prime Minister to continue his speech has passed. Madam Speaker, with your leave and certainly with the leave of the House, might the Prime Minister be allowed to continue his presentation before the House, Madam Speaker? With such sufficient time as to allow him to complete.
The question before the House is that the Prime Minister be given sufficient time to complete his presentation. Those in favour? Those against? Prime Minister.
So, Madam Speaker, my final point about benefits to Jamaica. Under this model, there will, as opposed to the bilateral contracting, the government of Jamaica is not positioning itself to provide any special incentives or waivers. So, Madam Speaker, as was given under previous arrangements, we are not expecting to give any fiscal waivers or considerations under this. So I just want that to be clear. So all taxes that apply will be applicable under this arrangement. So, Madam Speaker, I'm going to just yield for a moment. The Attorney General just wanted to clarify a legal point, which if members agree, I will yield and have her just make the clarification.
Madam AG.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, grateful. Just to put on record for members of the Honourable House, as well as for those who are listening, that the Interpretation Act provides in Section 30 that the term subject to affirmative resolution, when used in relation to any regulations, shall mean that those regulations are not to come into operation unless affirmed by a resolution of that House. And at Section 30, subsection 1, that all regulations made under any act or any lawful authority and having legislative effect shall be published in the Gazette, and unless otherwise provided, shall take effect and come into operation as law on the date of publication. And in Section 2, regulations include orders. So the impression, the ground in respect of the date, the Interpretation Act tells you how that is to be dealt with. For those who would hear the point and believe that there is a defect in respect of the order. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Sufficiently address the issues. There are 3 other projects, Madam Speaker, that we are considering. They are of national impact. But before we even venture, we want to see how this one works in terms of the contracting, the negotiating, and, Madam Speaker, these things shouldn't be, secret. As soon as they have been developed, what I will do is bring them to the opposition before, so that you can have the opportunity to research them, look at them, because we will probably have to consider how we treat these as national. And so, Madam Speaker, declaring the project, by the way, just to be clear, declaring projects as national projects does not necessarily mean that they would automatically be exempt. There might be other reasons why you would want to declare a project as a national project to indicate how serious the government is to mobilize all public resources around it. So the process of declaring a project a national project should not just be looked upon as trying to circumvent. And it is not all the time that we would be seeking to have the procurement rules obviated by virtue of declaring a project a national project. I just wanted to be clear on that. So, Madam Speaker, may it please you, I therefore put the resolution. I therefore put the resolution for the affirmation of the House. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. 1. This resolution may be cited as a Public Procurement National Development Project, Montego Bay Perimeter Road Project Order 2021 resolution. 2. The declaration of a development project known as the Montego Bay Perimeter Road Project to be a national development project to which the Act or any provisions thereof shall not apply is approved. And 3. The Public Procurement National Development Project, Montego Bay Perimeter Road Project Order 2021 is hereby affirmed.
The question is that the Public Procurement National Development Projects, Montego Bay Perimeter Road Order 2021 and resolution be approved. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Divide.
Members, please, House Leader, Opposition Leader, I'm very sorry, but I had the Prime Minister read the resolution, I read it, and it was approved.
No, Madam.
I didn't hear.
Madam Speaker, we called for a divide. When you put the resolution, we call for a divide.
With the greatest of respect, Leader, the PM read slowly, and I read slowly. I would certainly not have recognized. It is after it was approved that I heard.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the standing orders are very clear in its terms. I had to wait for you to put the motion, and before it was called for the vote, I stood up and I waited. Yes, I waited.
Members, he has a right to speak. Members, he has a right to speak. I apologize to you. I did not see, I did not hear. But having opposition leader, you have to accept that I did not see and I did not hear. I apologize. There is a divide. Okay. There is, but I did not see, I did not hear until after. So don't, yes. I have no reason. Go ahead. There's a divide.
Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Brown.
Madam Speaker, I will never ever question your ruling in this House. But you took the resolution, nobody stood up. I looked at them, and it's after you took the vote that they got up. So we shouldn't go back.
You're wasting time. Sit down.
We should not. At the time when you asked for those in favor, then we stood up. After us thing. I would never question ruling, Madam Speaker, but I just want to go on record.
Members, I have stated my position, but as you are all aware, I think that the debate went very well. The Prime Minister has cleared up all the questions that were asked, It is clear, and therefore, since there is a divide, let us quiet. There is a divide.
Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown? JBDC. Yes or no? Dr. Brownberg? Dr. Chang? Dr. Charles? Mr. Charles? Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Mr. Chin? Mr. Chuck? Mr. Clark? Dr. Clark? Mr. Cousins? Ms. Crawford? Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn? Ms. Daly? Mr. Davis? Ms. Davis? Dr. Dunn? Mr. Golding? Mr. Graham? Ms. Grange? Mr. Green? Dr. Guy? Ms. Hamilton? Ms. Hannah? Mr. Henriquez? Mr. Henry? Mr. Holness? Mrs. Holness? Mr. Hutchinson? Mr. Hutchinson? Mr. Hutchinson is there? Mr. Hilton? Mr. Jackson? Mr. Lawrence? Mr. Lawrence? Miss Lee? Mrs. Malahufort? Mr. Main? Mr. McKenzie? Mr. Miller? Miss Morrison? Miss Morrison? Mr. Montague? Mr. Morgan? Miss Nita? Mr. Paulwell? Mr. Paulwell? Mr. Phillips? Abstain. Dr. Phillips? Mr. Robertson? Mr. Robinson? Mr. Samuda? Mr. Shaw? Mr. Sibbles? Mr. Slowly? Miss Smith? Mr. Terrelong? Dr. Tufton? Mr. Vaz? Mrs. Vaz? Mr. Warmington?
Yes.
Dr. Wheatley? Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams? Mr. Wilson?
100% yes.
Mr. Witter? Mr. Wright?
Members, the clerk is adding the numbers up. However, I made it abundantly clear that I did not hear, and I know I've looked back at 45, and I know I was correct, that if you hear and it is obvious that a majority says A, that is it. But in certain instances, and I would think this is one as well, because it's a subject that has been debated, where as a government we have had an excellent debate, everything is there, We have nothing to hide. We stand for the people of Jamaica. We support what is happening in Jamaica. I think that we have indicated clearly when there is nothing, if the opposition calls for a divide, let us have the divide and it can go ahead. I have no problems with that. Not more than members, the order, the Public Procurement National Development Projects, Montego Bay Perimeter Road Order 2021 and resolution is carried by 36 votes. There are 6 persons objecting. There are 3 members abstain, and there are 16 members absent. So the order and the resolution is carried by 36 votes.
Madam Speaker, before the adjournment, I just would like to ask your permission to let all members know that there is a bag for them in the government. There's a bag for each member of the House in the government meeting room. Thank you very much. Please collect your bags, whether you have voted for or against or abstain.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, in addition to the goodie bags from Minister Shaw, we have had a wonderful day, an excellent day. And so, as there is no further business, I ask that the House be adjourned to Tuesday, May 18th. Tomorrow, Wednesday, when our speakers in the sectoral debate will be just the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Floyd Green. And so, Madam Speaker, I ask for the adjournment of the House.
The question before the House is that this House be adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, the 12th of May. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This Honorable House is now adjourned.